Hello everyone, welcome back to another one of my videos. If you're new here, my name is Laura. This is Culture Nonsense. If you're not new, thank you for coming back. Thank you for being a subscriber or watching my stuff again. And today we're going to talk about something that's kind of been obsessing me a little bit recently. If you're familiar with the description that I put for this channel, it's, anti-MLM stuff. I'd like to get into some culty type things, also do food videos. But another thing that I think I want to talk about is some type of, personal obsessions that I have, whether it be things culturally that are happening or something that I come across online that I feel the need to talk about. So with that being said, what I want to talk about today is specifically, family bloggers, mommy bloggers, the also weird confluence of family blogging with the Mormon or LDS church and also MLM spheres. A lot of those things really go together in an interesting way. And specifically, I would like to talk about how I find family blogging problematic or potentially harmful to children, especially young children whose families are really into family blogging. I got really interested in this topic recently when I saw some people talking about the potential harms and dangers of family blogging. And to be honest, I really hadn't given it too much thought before. I've grown up in this kind of new digital age, and I was, a preteen or becoming a teenager when a lot of this stuff was becoming more mainstream. So my whole adulthood, this type of reality TV, YouTube stuff has been around, but it's really gained so much more traction in the last maybe 5 to 7 years or so, I'd say. Going back to reality TV, like I mentioned, I remember being younger and shows like John and Kate Plus 8 would be on. A lot of stuff in TLC would have to do with large families like the Duggars. Now there's things like Welcome to Plathville. And interestingly, like I said, a lot of these family bloggers, family vloggers were either Mormon or, fundamentalist Christian in some way, shape, or form. And I think a lot of that has to do with the expectations and the roles of women in a lot of these families, because I know specifically in Mormon and fundamental circles, if you're a woman, you're really supposed to be a wife and a mother. The best place for you is at home with your kids. And I know that a lot of women actually really find that valuable. It's what they want to do. I want to have kids one day, and it would be really nice to be able to, prioritize spending time at home with them. However, for a lot of women, it's not necessarily even just a desire. It goes beyond that to the point where it's what's expected of them to do. And actually getting a job could be seen like you're neglecting your family, or you're not living up to your potential or your role that was designed for you by God. So actually, when religion gets involved, it becomes even more severe. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many, vloggers and bloggers are Mormon or from a fundamentalist Christian background, because it's something for them to do. Documenting family is great, but also it's a way for them to make money, especially on a one-parent income household when a lot of the world is designed for a two-parent income household. So it was a way for these women to feel like they were spending time with their children and fulfilling, their roles as women, but also actually being able to have a bit of a lucrative side income and then maybe full income from it. So it was really the best of both worlds. And I think that's how a lot of people get into it, thinking that it could be a way to capture and hold on to a lot of those family moments, but then also, be able to make money, and maybe your family needs money. So I just want to make it really clear that I don't think a lot of these people go into family vlogging with the intent of exploiting their children or doing anything harmful to their children. I don't think that they're thinking about that, but I believe that a lot of them should be. And there are a couple reasons for this. First of all, when you are filming your children day to day, especially with something like a vlog or a YouTube channel, I think it's even more invasive than those earlier reality TV shows that I mentioned. With a reality TV show, you might have a season of television a year, maybe two. There are cameras there for a decent amount of time following you around, but they cut stuff down to a hour TV show, and you might have anywhere from, 10 to 24 episodes for a year. And if you think about all of the time that you're spending during your day-to-day life, what actually makes it to the TV show is not too much of your day-to-day existence. However, some of these family vloggers are putting out a video a day. So first of all, it's already a lot more invasive than what makes it to TV. I also think that, parents aren't necessarily as discerning editors. I think they err on the side of putting on more content, because the thing with a lot of this stuff, it ends up being quantity over quality in terms of how ads run, actually. You could put together a half-hour beautifully cut montage of your family on a day at the zoo, but if you put out 5 videos during the week that are, shorter, like I said, where do the ads go? Probably you're erring for quantity over quality. And the thing that a lot of people realize is that they might get a huge following, or their family might get a huge following. I mean, after all, kids are cute. They do funny things. They're likable to watch. Family dynamics are interesting, especially if someone is dealing with something that you've gone through in your family, or there's an interesting crisis or fun event. You could want to see how someone else deals with it, or you could just enjoy a family going on an outing that you might think of doing for yourself in the future. So I understand the reason why people are drawn into these types of family vlogging channels and why they enjoy this content. But again, I'd like to get back to the fact that it's invasive and exploitative for the kids. So children are really not able to give informed consent to be on camera. And, some of these family vloggers are filming their kids throughout their entire lives. They could be on camera from the time they were babies all the way through going to college. Like, I know one of my friends really likes the Cute Girls Hairstyles channel, which, branched off. The kids have their own thing. But they were on camera from a very young age, sporting hairstyles or whatever. There were some vlogging aspects involved. And they really lived their whole adolescence on camera. Now, I think that since this is a relatively new phenomena in society, we're not exactly sure how this is going to affect kids in the long term. I would definitely say it's not a typical childhood. And also, the internet and YouTube haven't been around that long in the grand scheme of things. YouTube first launched in 2005, and I would say that this type of family vlogging has really only been taking off for the last 10 years or so, probably not even that much. I started to notice a huge boom of it around, 2015. So we're not exactly sure about the long-term effects of what this can do to children, being online all the time. But I think a lot of the preliminary research suggests that it's not that good. I think a lot of the times you kind of have to put that consent issue out of your head, because the way that you make money is connected to having your kids on camera. So you can't really think about it, because if you took the time to think of the ethical implications, you might decide it's not for you, and then the huge revenue stream for your family is gone. So I think a lot of people just don't think about it because they don't want to, and they would like to continue making money, which I get it. If it's your job, if it's your only form of income, you didn't go to school, you don't have another viable career option, I can understand how stopping family vlogging could be really detrimental to your family. But I think it's more detrimental to your kids in the long term. Like I mentioned, we're not exactly sure what the huge long-term effects of this for kids could be. However, if you think about how messed up a lot of kids' experiences were being child actors, and how some of that, trauma carried over into their adult lives, I think there are definite correlations there. When you feel like your entire childhood is performative, I think that could raise a lot of issues for you, especially if you don't feel like you have any safe or private family moments. Everything could be mined for content, and there's nothing really that's yours, that's private. If it were me, I might feel uncomfortable talking to my parents about something because I would be worried that they, would put it online, or if it's interesting enough, stage the whole thing over again to put it online. I recently saw a video of parents taking their 8-year-old daughter out to have the sex talk, and they filmed that and put it online. And I don't think that's something that should be put out for public consumption. The little girl looked really embarrassed the whole time. And who knows if, kids at her school are going to watch that. It could potentially follow her for the rest of her life. Again, if this is something that different parents want advice about, I think it could be really useful to say, this is how we did it with our kids. But then fine, make a video like this where you explain it, give examples, you could maybe even talk in more detail, something that's from parent to parent. It doesn't have to be filming your child explicitly in a pretty embarrassing and uncomfortable moment that should really be, private and special between parent and child. And as I mentioned, to me, this girl looked pretty uncomfortable during the whole thing. I mean, actually, she was pretty excited to be able to spend one-on-one time with her family because they had so many kids. She really doesn't get one-on-one time with her parents, which is a whole other issue. However, I think that while kids might be uncomfortable, they might not have the emotional understanding or capacity to really put all of their feelings into words, to be able to express to their parents, I don't feel safe and secure when most of our interactions are put online. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Some of them might not even realize why they feel uncomfortable. And I think also it can be really hard to bring that up to your parents, especially if you know that your family income is tied to you creating content for your parents. I think that's a whole nother level of guilt that you're placing on a child when you make them responsible, essentially, for bringing home the paycheck for your family. I mean, if you knew that that's how your family made all their money, would you want to go to your parents and say, Mom and Dad, I would like it if you didn't film me anymore? I mean, what's the next step after that? You don't want to put your family in a bad financial situation, so you're putting even more guilt and responsibility on a child when they should just be able to live their lives. Not to mention, when you equate living your life with becoming your job, I think it can become pretty exhausting. I mean, I just started making these videos and I enjoy it, but it's a lot of time to think up what I'm going to say. And, for this, I've done some research and I'll link some of those sources below. You have to get the filming set up and do the filming and the editing, and it takes a lot of time. I think that making your life into an online presence can kind of suck some of the joy out of the things that you used to really like when it was maybe a side hobby instead of just your job. So speaking of that research, I said I'll link some of the things that I read in the description below here. I have a couple quotes that I'd like to read that I think kind of hit on some of the points that I mentioned before. So this is from Harold Kopowitz, I believe, who's a psychiatrist and the head of the Child Mind Institute. And he said that all children want to please their parents. We trust the caretakers in our lives that they're looking out for us. If they're not, it makes us very anxious and uncomfortable. And he added that as they grow into adolescence, kids need privacy and to be able to make mistakes, and they need parents who are their protectors, not employers. I think this really sums up some of what I've been trying to say about how, putting your kids on camera all the time can be really exploitative and bad for their mental health. Not to mention that in some really extreme cases, parents can go a little crazy and try to set up scenarios to have their kids get more views, Speaking of setting up scenarios, I know this is something that a lot of moms and MLMs used to do to kind of show their products, filming their kids and being like, look, I get to spend so much time with my child. I'm here at home. And really, it was just kind of a setup for online. They go right back to working their business. They're not actually even able to be there with their child, but they're just using their kid, basically selling the idea of time with your children to get other people to join their companies, which are really scams. I have another quote here that's from an opinion article, which I'll also link below, which goes into some of the imbalance of power that I think is also at play here. Between an adult and someone much younger, an imbalance of power exists, an unequal dynamic exists. We're hardwired to respect those in positions of authority, to succumb to the pressures they place on us, and we are particularly starry-eyed with our parents. I'm sure we all remember our perspectives of our mothers and fathers when we were younger, putting them on a pedestal, practically idolizing them before the shock of realizing their imperfections. Now imagine that the source of their income, the very reason you had shelter and were able to eat every night, was your cross to bear. Imagine the burden that must be for the children of family vloggers. And like I said before, because you have this really great view of your parents as a child, you might not want to come to them with your feelings of discomfort. You might not really be able to articulate it, or you might be scared of disappointing them, or if you know that this is tied to your family income, you might feel like it's a big burden. Going along here, another quote. So no, children cannot truly consent, and why would they? Who would want a permanent record of all their embarrassing moments? We all cringe when others look at our baby photos. The experience is even worse for these children. Who would want each step of their maturation to be viewed by complete strangers? The utter lack of privacy these children suffer should rock the internet more than it does. I cannot fathom what about family vloggers is in any way entertaining rather than reprehensible. Children deserve the freedom to make mistakes, the peacefulness of having no cares in the world, and the security of knowing that their parents act in their best interests. I completely agree with this sentiment, and as I said before, things being around online and following you is something that these kids are going to have to deal with for the rest of their lives, and I don't think they can consent to having themselves online in the first place. They don't understand that this is going to follow them around forever. And who knows what the future holds in this area, but these are just a few of my thoughts that I wanted to share. Let me know in the comments what you think about family vloggers. Like I mentioned before, I don't think that a lot of these people start off with bad intentions, but I think it's a very slippery slope when you put the priorities of, getting money for your family ahead of the well-being of your children. And I think a lot of them don't realize that they're choosing money and a type of fame over their kids because they might think of it as, I'm providing for my family. But at what cost? What cost to your kids, really? And that's what I'd like to get across and what I'd like more people to realize. And you can still talk about the experiences that your family has. Like I mentioned, you can explain in detail, hardships that you're going through or funny things that your kids are doing. But, make it more about, maybe yourself and your husband, if you still want a family vlog. Talk about things that go on with your kids, but don't put them on camera. That's really the thing that I take issue with. You're taking away their ability to consent, and you don't know what this experience is going to do for the rest of their lives. It could be fine, but it could have really negative effects. So, as I mentioned, if you have any questions or comments about anything that I just said, put them in the comments below. If you like this little talk that I had, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed, thank you so much. Give this a like or share it to someone if you want to. I will be back shortly with more content, and I hope you all have a lovely week. Bye.